the life of an average human being. What does he thinks that life is all about? What does he do in his life? The life that we usually see humanity live is that we eat, we drink, we sleep, we go to work, we receive education, we have a family, we bear children, and then we pass away, we die. This is the life of a average human being. This is what all humanity seems to be doing. Is this all it to life? That there would be one day in existence that we will be born, and from there on we would uh, go on to receive education, then we'll find a way to earn our living, and then the usual drill. Is this really it? Does life end at all of this, or there is something much more that we are unable to lay our hands on? There is a constant pursuit of pleasure in the life of a human being. He strives to gain more and more pleasure, more and more happiness, more and more gratification. And it is through these gratifications, these pleasures, that he thinks that life is worth living. In fact, he may even think that this is what life is all about, to involve yourself in higher and higher pleasures. The pleasures of the body, the pleasures of the mind, emotional pleasures, entertainment, etc. This is more or less what the structure of life looks like for us. There is the pursuit of pleasure, there is some milestones that we think that we have to achieve, and when all of it is said and done, we can finally say that we lived a good life. Is this what a good life really is? First of all, what is goodness? Is goodness according to an idea, according to an image? Because it seems like that all our ideas of goodness are predetermined, are already laid down in front of us. We at least know or seem to have an idea that what real goodness is. And so, is goodness predictable? Can we really have a predetermined set of things that we can do and then say that by the virtue of doing those things, by the virtue of achieving, by having those things in our life, we have invited goodness into our days. If all our goodness is pre-decided, then it is simply an instruction manual, some rules that we are simply following. There is no creativity or spontaneity to what we are involved in, what we are indulged in. If life is already set, predetermined, fixed, planned, then is it really life? Can we mold life into a predefined structure? And if this is our idea of life, then it is simply mechanical. There is no life in it. Because when everything is pre-decided, when we are moving according to a plan, when there are set rules and instructions that this is all one has to do in their life, where is life really in that? There is no movement here. We are moving towards a stationary object, some stationary idea of what good life really is, and we then struggle and strive to pursue that idea. There is no agility, there is no newness, there is no freshness to this framework that we have apparently seemed to subscribe to. We have simply bought in to, we have believed into a notion of life. What we have in the name of life is a notion, an idea that this is life, that this is what life is about. Because that is what we see everyone around us doing. Whole humanity seem to be involved in those fixed compartments. They may look different outwardly, but inherently they are those same compartments in which every human being seem to be living in. Outwardly there are similarity, and then there is this inward similarity where we would face this emptiness, sorrow, a state of boredom. We would find ourselves running towards pleasure. The inward movement of our life, of one person, is not too different from the inward movement of another person. One's beliefs may be different, one's ideas may be different, but inherently one seems to be going through the same rigmarole that every other human being is going through. And that is why we see that there is a constant presence of dullness in our life, because we have this notion of life which has no reality to life itself. It is this notion we seem to be holding on to and have told ourselves that this notion is what life is. Isn't it worthwhile going into the notion of the life that we have, the ideas, the beliefs that we have about life, our picture of our images of what a good life is? Isn't that worth inquiring into? Because if we simply follow a pattern, we follow what we see everyone else, everyone around us doing, then where is the originality? Where is the authenticity which we can claim exists in our life? We are simply a part of this universal global imitation that is continuing from the past. The human being, whether from the west or from the east, seem to be living life under these basic compartments and sections which are not fundamentally different. And so it becomes our responsibility to really inquire, to check, to doubt these notions, this same flow or structure of life that everybody else is living, because there ought to be something behind all of this. There ought to be something much more worthwhile behind this. And even if there is not, we should at least find it by ourselves. If we simply believe that there is no meaning, if we simply believe that there is a meaning, both of these polar positions are inherently founded on beliefs. There hasn't been a rigorous search, inquiry, questioning into understanding what is that which is meaningful? What is, or is there something beyond this same old pattern of life? Where we eat, sleep, drink, go to work, have a family, and that's it. Is that how limited life is supposed to be? Because certainly, if there is an unending demand for pleasure within us, there ought to be something which is limitless, which has no end, which cannot be measured, which cannot be circumscribed. We may be living a limited, narrow life, a life that is circumscribed or can simply fit into some patterns. We may be living such a life, but we certainly see that there is a demand for something that cannot be measured, that cannot be put into limits, that is unending, that stays, something that is not changing with the weather. If everything in life is simply modifying itself, including us, including our psychological structure, including our body, including everything that is physical, if everything else is modifying, evolving, changing, is there something which does not come into this cycle of change, evolution, modification? And if there is that, is it not worth finding out? Is it not worth seeing, understanding, looking? Should one even not attempt to understand what is it that has no limit, that is not dependent on something, that doesn't change as the weather or the time changes? Because certainly there is this discontentment within, which is palpable. It may be in a form of restlessness, it may be in a form of anxiety, it may be in a form of misery, but there is this discontentment within, which is alive in the human being and which prompts him to search for pleasure, to search for happiness. Isn't this discontentment worth addressing? Shouldn't we come face to face with the dissatisfaction that we carry throughout our lives? And one can even say that it is this dissatisfaction which manifests itself into all our actions that we seem to pursue in life. these compartments that we have fit life into, of receiving an education, of starting a family, of going to work, all of these actions may look different on the surface, but the point from which they begin is human beings' fundamental dissatisfaction with his present state. Why one would want a family? Why would one want to go to work every day? Why would one want to receive education? Why would one want to search for a pleasure that doesn't end? Behind all of our urges, behind this drive, is that one common point of dissatisfaction, of discontentment, that is very much alive within the human being. And we may try to address it through different ways. We may try to look for contentment through work, through entertainment, through our relationships, but we find that any of these ventures that we go to address this discontentment, it is not totally, completely answered. No one thing addresses the discontentment that is within completely. We move from one thing to another. When we are tired of work, we go to the family, and when we have had enough of the family, we go to the entertainment. When we have enough of the entertainment and family, we think, okay, now let's go to work. We just move from one venture to another. We just move from one part of life to another. In fact, we live in these parts. When we have had enough of one part of life, we move to another part of life, and when we have had enough of the other part of life, then we move on to some another part of life. And then why is it surprising that these parts only address the discontentment within partially, that they do not answer the restlessness within totally? And when one realizes that no one part of life, that even if we try to strike a so-called balance with one part of life and the other part of life, we try to strike a balance between work, between family, between our own personal pleasures. If we do try to strike or maintain a certain balance, even maintaining such a balance is not enough. Everything comes up short. Every endeavor that we go on to pursue does not address the uneasiness within. And so, is it not then rational, logical to just stop, to completely halt our movements to put a stop to all our struggle in maintaining a balance between one part of life and another part of life. All our efforts to make our endeavors more and more rich and meaningful, and instead just look at what is really going on. Just grasp for oneself that how whatever we may try, that how whatever we may pursue, whatever we may go and try to capture, that all of our efforts simply are failing, that they are really not the complete, total answer to the restlessness that is very much alive within. And so stopping ourselves in the tracks and seeing, then perceiving, then whatever we may try, nothing is really working. Can we look? Can we stay? Can we hold our dissatisfaction, our discontentment in our palms and face it, however uncomfortable it makes us, however fearful it may look? Can we stay with our uncertainty, with our misery for days and days? Do we have that love within us which can really work around and allows us to understand what is really going on within, without seeking for pleasure in the outward direction, without seeking for some gratification, some relief in the outward direction? Can we simply look at what is going on in our life, at what is this turmoil within that compels us to look for gratification, entertainment, pleasure without? Who is this entity within which feels all this misery? How did this entity came into existence? Do I have a part to play in it? If there is this isolation within that I feel, if there is fear within that I feel, if there is misery and uneasiness that I feel within, there ought to be someone who is experiencing all this, who is feeling all this. Who is this someone? And if I am feeling it so closely, so intimately, can we not transform it? Can we observe this isolation, these feelings of fear, misery and anxiety? Can we look for what they are? Do they not sustain the one who is already feeling all this? And is there a separation between the feeling and the one who feels this feeling? Can observation of this of our fears, of our anxieties, of the discontentment that is so palpable within, can that observation not bring in a change? Because an object under observation does go through a change. And when we really observe what is actually going on, when we really face, when we live with the discontentment that is within, does it not change? Does the observed phenomena transforms itself and ceases to be? This power of perception is enough for us to grasp and comprehend what is actually going on. The falseness of the entity which says that there is fear, which says that there is a discontentment. Can we see that this entity is false, is fictional, that it is really projecting all of this, that the assumption it exists is the beginning of all suffering, emptiness, anxiety, discontentment that the human feels within, without addressing the entity which claims to be feeling all of this. We cannot find anything that is really meaningful, which is life. We cannot find life itself until we do not know who the one who is really living it. We would simply go on to live life under some notions, under some narratives that are supplied to us by the world, by the society, and we will simply buy into it. We would have no other option but to buy into it, because we are seeking comfort, we are seeking some sort of rest, and then we have to really make sure that the things that we are seeking rest and comfort in, are they really the source of real comfort? Are they really providing us any substantial rest? Because it is easy to put oneself into a state of belief and assume that I am comfortable and assume that I am at rest, until unless there is someone to claim that they are comfortable, that they are at rest, there is actually no rest and no comfort. Because when one is really at ease, they are really rested, there is no need within to say so. All our comforts, all our claims of feeling comfort, of feeling security, of feeling rest, are simply claims. Because the one who is really rested and at ease with himself, they have no interest in claiming anything. To learn about oneself, to find out the reality of ourselves, of our daily life, is to get oneself out of that pattern of life which we see every human being subscribing to. And then there is goodness in life, then there is spontaneity, then there is no planning, no predetermined route that one is compelled to take. From that point on, whatever that happens is simply a manifestation of the originality, that of the authenticity that rests within.